Like,
we're live?
We're live on my computer, nowhere else.
Oh, so we're not live.
No. All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year 2024. That is my best friend, Chris.
Hey,
we're doing
what's
a
up?
collab cam stream today, but it's an off-stream recording. But we're going to be talking about some good stuff and catching up, even though we just saw each other literally a couple days ago.
I mean, I think we talk to each other at least like once a day, every day. So we're catching up at all times. We're always keeping up to date.
If anything, we need to add more mustard, but...
I see what you did there. I disapprove.
So, Chris, why don't you give a little background of who you are and your YouTube channel?
Yo, what's up? My name's Chris. I am Chris from the Gameboiz. TheGameboiz. We haven't been posting a whole lot on YouTube, but we do have a YouTube channel. We mostly post on TikTok now. I would suggest following us on TikTok. That's where we have the most of our majority of our content. We make sometimes we make skits, sometimes we make reviews. A lot of things we've been doing lately though are historical look backs on old games. We've been focusing on Halo recently, but in the future we're gonna go on Resident Evil or whatever really strikes our fancy. So check us out there, and we're gonna be bringing the podcast back soon. Hopefully, if my other friend Mike decides to get off his lazy ass and stop going to law school. But other than that, that's our future plans.
Game on! So, Chris, we've been friends for such a long time, and I have some questions that I want to ask you because I haven't really asked you these questions, and lately I've been picking up older games that I remember playing as a kid that I may have sold or got rid of, and I'm trying to bring those childhood memories back. So I have some questions I want to ask you, and then I want to know your side of the story.
Your most pressing question, yes, I did do it.
You did do it?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There's questions that I have that I want to know about how your story is compared to mine growing up as a kid. And I know that we each have siblings. I know you're one of 3, I'm one of 5. But I want to see how similar or maybe how different our stories are growing up. I got the first question for you. All right. So, what was your favorite memory as a kid when gaming? So, an example, what is something you remember when you were gaming? Was it like the environment you were in? Maybe a certain time of the season? Pick something that you remember as a kid growing up.
Well, my favorite memory is probably always just Christmas time. Getting the games unwrapped and running downstairs with my brother immediately to play them. Those are always my favorite memories, is opening the gifts on Christmas. But in terms of playing the games themselves, I think some of my favorite ones are playing Halo. You know the LAN parties?
Yes, absolutely.
Because online didn't exist yet. It was not quite a thing. So we had to bring our Xboxes, which was the size of pickup trucks, over to other people's houses in order to get a multiplayer match going of Halo. And it was the most satisfying thing in the world, getting a headshot and hearing somebody else in the other room screaming, "Mother!" There's nothing that quite describes that magic.
Yeah.
You can play online now, but being there physically with other people is unmatched. There's something, that you can't quite describe about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so in other words, that was the real Xbox Live because you were living in the moment.
Yes,
and while playing with other people.
The moment was live. Unlike actual Xbox Live, where there's a bit of a delay, there's no delay in real life.
Exactly.
So that's really live.
So, all right, that was very good. So I'm going to add to mine for each question we do. So my favorite memory as a kid was I'm the fourth out of the 5th child.
So you're not quite the baby.
I'm not the baby, but I remember growing up playing because of my older siblings, starting off with it was either Sonic,
hey,
or
KFC, what you did there,
or Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Genesis. My favorite memory, I think, was just growing up doing the 2v2, not the 2v2, but the co-op. Either playing Sonic and Tails with 2 controllers, or Streets of Rage co-op, or doing the dual mode.
Yes, yeah. Oh
So,
god, the dual mode. I remember the dual mode.
it was interesting because, not to get off topic here, but I remember in Streets of Rage 2 to be exact, when you do the dual mode, if you choose the same character, you get a different skin. They're a different color, which was interesting, like their clothes. So I thought that was cool, like that Sega did that
It was
for
nice.
the time.
It's little things like that make you appreciate retro games.
It's like, yeah,
because
they look what they did, look where they are now. For those games that took the time to be in today's society.
Were you playing with your brother? Because you were asking me about siblings earlier. Were you playing?
I would play with my older sister Michelle a lot. On Streets of Rage, we would either do the duel or the co-op. I'll be honest with you, growing up with my 2 older brothers, believe it or not, I don't know if it's because they're 10 years older, I didn't really have that bond that I did with my sister, and I think because we were closer in age.
I think that 10-year age gap has a lot.
And they were like, you know what I mean? So they were a little bit older. They probably didn't want to play with their younger brother, younger sibling.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember when my sister is also 10 years older than me, and she left for college when I was like 8. So I mean, like, there's not really, you can't really like connect.
Exactly.
We got a lot closer later on, but at that time, it was like, you know, very.
It's always like I feel like it was like a rougher start, but then like as you get older, it's like, you know, you find time to catch up. You're older, everyone's. You know, once you hit a certain age, you're old enough to like be cool again. You know.
Exactly.
So.
But my brother is 6 years older than me, and we were able, like, it's still a pretty noticeable gap, but it's just close enough to where you can play video games together at the same time.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought up those LAN parties was because he would bring over his friends and play Halo, and I would beg to play Halo with them, and they would let me, and I would get my ass kicked so hard every time. But it made me a better Halo player because I learned what their techniques were. Yes. I learned where the spots were. I learned where the guns were. And slowly but surely over time, I got my cognitive skills together and I was able to get my reflexes up. And I would be competing with them and then dominating them. Yeah. And then they'd be like, we don't want to play with Chris anymore. He's too good. This is unfair. Chris is progression.
Chris is, if not the best player in the world, the best in my opinion. Actually, it's a fact. It's a Snapple fact. Chris is the best Halo player in the country, if not the world.
I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I think that's a very reasonable statement. But it took a lot of time to get to that point because I'm playing these guys that are much older and have much better reflexes than me. It was frustrating. But to all the kids out there that are having those moments of frustration, keep fighting through because eventually you're going to get the skills necessary to kick your older brother's ass and then win bets with him in Halo tournaments. I promise.
Yes. Good stuff, man. All right. Question number 2. How far back do you remember in age playing a game, console? How far back do you remember? Like,
it's funny
picked up a controller.
My 2 earliest memories are with my brother.
Okay.
I think I was like 6 or 7. He got the Nintendo 64 for Christmas.
Okay.
And I remember watching him play and just being fascinated by what was happening because I don't remember video games before 3D.
Right.
My first experience was Mario 64. My first memory is Mario 64. And I was like, this is amazing. This is so cool. And I tried playing Bomb Battlefield and just running, not even playing the game properly, just running around like an idiot, not knowing what to do, and having my mind blown that I could have like an interactive experience.
Right.
And then my other first memory, I guess would be the second memory, not too long after that, my brother invited his friend James over to play Streets of Rage. And I remember having so much fun playing Streets of Rage with Andrew. And then watching him and James play, they were like so much better than me. So I was like having my mind blown that they were able to actually get past the first stage in Streets of Rage 2. And I don't know why this memory specifically sticks out in my mind. They were on the pirate level and James was complaining to my brother, dude, what the f***? Why are you taking the 1-up? You have 7 lives. I only have 1. And
you gotta get good.
I don't know why that one memory specifically sticks out in my mind, but that's my earliest memory.
That's awesome. I mean, for me, I would tie back to the first question. I was about probably 5 or 6 when I was playing the Sega Genesis. because when I moved, I was about 7, so that in my old house, I remember around that age playing Streets of Rage 2 or Sonic the Hedgehog. It was one of those two, but that's as far back as I can remember. Picking up a controller, and that was the first console I was like hands-on with.
So you were learning early on with the Genesis.
Yes, that was the first.
I
don't even think I started on the Nintendo. It was around, but I don't think I started on that. The Sega Genesis, I believe, was the first.
Was your sister like teaching you, or were you picking it up yourself?
Teaching, but when you're 5 or 6, you kind of know, like, you only have a couple buttons on the controller.
Yeah.
You kind of start to mash. You try to feel around for it. But yeah, it's pretty awesome to know, like, I started with that at the time. Like, that's pretty. I would Sega Genesis is. It's retro, baby. That's it.
Would you say Sega does what Nintendo don't?
Yes. So, all right. Question number 3.
All right.
Did you play games with your siblings often? If so, do you remember what you played? I know you spoke about your brother with the Halo.
Yeah, we played Halo.
But before that, did you play Nintendo for Duck Hunt or anything? Or
we never played Nintendo together. I remember I have we might have played GoldenEye at some point.
Okay.
But I remember playing GoldenEye with like kids in elementary school. Like, it wasn't really with my brother that I played GoldenEye. We played Halo all the time.
Okay, so that was later on. Obviously, when the Xbox originally came out.
That was our go-to thing. Like, we would always butt heads. So, whenever we were butting heads, we'd like take it to the streets. And by streets, I mean the Xbox.
You mean Streets of Rage? Okay, I got you.
Streets of Rage. And then I remember we would play co-op Streets of Rage 2 like you would with your sister.
Right.
And then I remember we'd play multiplayer in Halo, but I also remember very specifically the first time we beat the Halo campaign. And for me, it was like a life-changing experience. For him, it was a Tuesday because it wasn't that hard for him. But for me, it was possible because I couldn't get the controls down for the Warthog.
Right.
And I remember
the Warthog is very hard if you're new to Halo.
If you're new to Halo and you're like 7,
it's very hard.
And you're like 10 or however old I was, you don't know what the going on. So I had to have him drive the Warthog, and I was in the turret in the back. And then when we finally launched the Warthog off onto the Pillar of Autumn, the end of it, and we got out and we rushed into the ship that was going to get us our escape, I remember cheering like, yes, yes, that was awesome. I didn't curse that obviously at the time, but I was like, yes, oh my god. Yeah. And he was like, it's not that big a deal. I mean, that was pretty easy, but for me it wasn't easy. So
breaking a sweat over here.
I was really looking up to him at the time. I was like, how do you think this is so easy? That was so difficult. How do you make this look so easy? And so I was like really looking up to him at the time when he just like brushed it off like it was no big thing.
Yeah.
So that's like we played, like, to answer your question more directly though, we would play a lot. We would play a lot of Halo, and we would play a lot of NHL.
Okay.
So we played like NHL 03, I think it was, or 02, like way back before the controls got good.
Right.
So, and we'd also play a lot of NHL 94 on the Genesis. I don't know if you ever played that.
I think I have 95 on the Genesis.
Yeah.
It's still at home. I have to double check.
Despite the fact that we were playing in 2003, we'd go back and play NHL 95 on the Genesis because we felt like that was one of the best games, the best hockey games.
Right.
Which was weird because we were retro gaming before retro gaming was a thing.
Was that, not to go off topic, I don't know if it was 94. All right. It was either 94 or 95. Was that when you scored a goal, the goalie would hit the post side to side, be pissed off? Or that would have been 95.
I think that was 95.
Yeah, when you scored, the alarm would go off, and he would just be bashing both sides.
Yeah. That did happen.
Yeah, it was. I gotta say though, the passing in that game was fairly easy.
Yes.
It was like locked. It was like aimbot. It was perfect. The scoring a little different, but passing was really good.
It was the perfect mix of like arcade with a little bit of simulation.
Yeah. And then you could fight the other player too.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I remember you could punch them, and I was like, "This is." I mean, I gotta say, people probably older than me at the time, who were into hockey, probably thought that was a big deal.
Yes, it was a big deal because that was like, this is like the first true, like, NHL game.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple of like our whatever games that weren't really that great, but the controls just felt perfect.
Yeah.
On NHL 94 and 95. Also, a game that people all seem to forget in the hockey world, Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey.
Oh,
That is the best 3D hockey game before the NHL license really got up into the stratosphere.
Right.
Like, I remember my brother and I not really focusing on the game itself, but just beating the shit out of each other because we thought the graphics were so good. Obviously, looking back on it now, they're awful. But we thought the graphics was so good. I bet having like these two guys just wail on each other.
Yeah.
Like, we were just focusing on like beating each other up.
That's funny.
that was really like a lot of fun. So Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, NHL, and Halo. Those are the games we played a lot of with each other.
Awesome.
And Streets of Rage 2, obviously.
Yeah, bring it to the streets. All right, before I get to my next question, because I feel like you're gonna elaborate a lot on this one. Let me just for me to answer question 3 about playing with my siblings, a little on and off. When I got introduced to the PS1, the PlayStation 1, I was playing more FIFA, WWF at the time before it became WWE. Because you can fight in the ring, and FIFA.
Do you remember which WWF game it was?
Oh yes, it was SmackDown 2001. Know Your Role. That was it. Specific, and it had Dwayne Johnson on the cover, I believe.
I never played that one. I only played the ones for N64.
The Rock, basically. Yeah, it had The Rock on the
2000. Dwayne the Cane Johnson.
It was either 2000 or the Pebble. It was either 2000 or 2001, and yeah, it was SmackDown Know Your Role. Yeah. But anyway, a little bit of Gran Turismo, because, there was split screen action for that.
Yes, there was.
So many good songs in Gran Turismo 2. When it was on the 2-disc set with the fat bundle, I like that.
There was a lot of, like, EDM in that, if I'm not mistaken.
Like, there might have been. There was a lot of European songs. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, what a time. But anyway, this leads us to the next question now. All right, this is a 2-parter, I guess, but answer it however you like. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite? And if you have a top 3 or whatever, or if you want to say everything in the world, fine. What was your favorite console growing up and handheld?
That's impossible.
You could do 3, 5, whatever you want.
I might have to do like top 20.
That's funny.
Okay.
I'm not so sure there are 20 consoles. Right. I'm joking. No, there definitely are. So, to be fair, you can do 3 or 5. It's up to you.
Why don't you go first on this
Me?
one? I gotta think about it.
Favorite console growing up? I was very limited. So I think I have to say, if we're going to do like a top 3 tier, I would probably say the Sega Genesis, PS1, and PS2. Mainly because that's what I started with. Never in my life had I played the original Nintendo. It's locked away, not under lock and key, but it's locked away in my old house. I don't want to take it out because I feel like if I touch it, it's gonna break. But it's so nice to look that it actually does exist. So I would have to say Sega Genesis, PS1, and PS2.
I think those are all extremely good choices.
I'll let you go unless you want me to do the handheld.
Okay, we'll get to the handheld in a second.
All right, we'll do consoles first.
God. All right, top 3.
You can push it to 5. But I feel like 3 is good. I feel like 3 is good.
I don't want to cheat.
Okay.
I would say N64.
Okay.
Just because like a lot of memories playing with people on N64. Like that was my first gaming system, so I kind of feel like I have to say N64. Oh god. The second one is a tie between the original Xbox and Xbox 360.
Okay. You know what? You can if you have to, you can merge those two.
I'm gonna say original Xbox just because that just was so much. That was such a mind blower.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like that graphics can look like that. I remember. Did you ever play Dead or Alive 3?
No. I know what the game is though. I know exactly what it is.
I remember that looking just like real life. So I'm gonna say the original Xbox.
It is real life. You're either dead or alive. You can't be both.
Exactly. That's what I've been.
So it is real life. You're absolutely correct on that one.
And 3 would be GameCube, just because we would play Melee all the time.
GameCube. What an interesting design, though. Seriously.
Well, do you want?
Not to mention, Not to mention the attachment for the Game Boy Advance underneath. One of the best things they've ever done, honestly.
I agree. It was one of the best things they ever did. Right here, baby.
Nice.
For those of you listening to the audio only, I am holding up the GameCube to the camera. And Angela's seeing the
listening to the
reflection of
audio
herself.
podcast, I can see myself on the GameCube reflection on the top. All right, cool.
I do have to dust that off.
All right, so you got those 3 lined up. Should I go handheld or do you want to start that off?
Let's go handheld.
No, but do you want me to?
You know what? I'll say the handheld.
All right, you can start it off.
Right off the bat, favorite handheld 3DS.
Okay, I had a feeling.
3DS. I would say the Game Boy, but you can play Game Boy games on the 3DS.
Correct.
So I mean,
well, it was the DS at the time.
Yeah, and you can play DS games on 3DS too.
Yes.
So the 3DS can really handle it all.
I'm gonna say Game Boy Color. I'll tell you why. That was my siblings obviously had the original Game Boy, and I remember playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. I think it was Back from the Sewers, I believe. But anyway, Game Boy Color. My mom takes me to Toys R Us. For those of you who do not know what Toys R Us is, it's probably one of the best stores growing up. If there's still any around, I think they're in New Jersey. I won't be ashamed to go. But long story short, my mom takes...
There's a Toys R Us inside the Macy's on 34th Street in New York City.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I go to Toys R Us. I believe it was under 70. It might have been $65 or $68 with tax. My mom's like, pick out a color. I still have it. It's not with me right now. It's in my night table. But I picked out like a teal turquoise color. I believe I got Pokemon Red that same day as well.
You made the right choice. You made the right choice.
So I got Pokemon Red, and then eventually I didn't get the other colors until later. Like by later, probably like last year. And that includes blue, yellow, and green. Point being, I loved it. Because it wasn't backlit, I had to get one of those backlit extensions that attach.
Because the only way you could see the screen was if you held it up to the surface of the f***ing sun.
Yeah. And
like, it was ridiculous.
You know I'm old when you're driving in the car and your sibling has to tell you that a tunnel is coming up so that you can pause the game. Because yes, if you went under a tunnel, it was pitch black and you couldn't see what you were doing.
What the hell? My brother was never looking out for me doing that. What the hell is this?
Tunnel! There's a tunnel coming up. Anyway, it's a Game Boy Color for me. And I remember the slogan for the commercial. If I'm not mistaken, Game Boy Color, get into it. And it was the creepy mouth that was like in the Color logo, and it was like Game Boy Color, get into it.
Commando Elite Force is rated E for everyone on Game Boy Color. Get into it.
I feel like I've seen so many video game commercials. I don't think I've seen that one.
Check it out when you can.
There was 2. One of them was Get Into It. The other was Escape to a World of Color.
Get a job.
Escape to a world of color for each and every Game Boy game. New Game Boy Color.
Okay, Get Into It is the one I remember. I think that was their first one.
Yeah,
but it was creepy. It was like a mouth talking in the words of color.
These 90s ads were, just by looking on Google Images, these 90s ads were weird.
Creepy.
Yes. Like, I see, like, the first thing that comes up is an image of 5 people with, 5 people's heads with Game Boys coming out of the top of their Chrome.
That's my questions for you right now. But let's talk about, because, you know, me and you, I think, have the same point of view on this. Video game stores.
I like where this is going.
Video game trading posts. Probably one of my favorite stores on Long Island. I have to say, if it weren't for them, truthfully, comes from the bottom of my heart. If it weren't for stores like that, I don't think I would remember what my childhood was like. For example, like, you know, you go through the phase of you play games, you get older, you get rid of them, you sell them. And it's like, you need something to remind you what it was like to own it again. You go into a GameStop, it's all current games. You go into a video game retro store, oh my god, I used to play that when I was a kid. And then now it's like, I want to play it again, you buy it. It kind of reminds you like, what life was like when you enjoyed it. So it's like, it's kind of like you walk in there and it's like you kind of want to take a time machine to go back in time and visualize yourself playing like the game that you used to have.
Exactly.
That happened to me when I came back from Italy in 2017 because my cousin had the PSP, the 3000 series. And I was like, wow, I really wish I had my second gen limited edition again because I sold it years ago for whatever reason. So as soon as I got home from the flight from Italy, the first thing I did was I go on my phone, I go on eBay, I look for a nice condition silver edition second gen, the PSP 2000, and I order it. And I ordered the webcam too that same day. I was like, why? Because I remember how good the PSP was. So it was a memory, like it's like a part of me. Some things you can't let go, and then when you do, you realize, wow, I really missed having that. And honestly, to me, that's what those stores do to me. I go in there, and I see something that I remember seeing as a kid, or something I wanted to try, didn't have access to, and now you're an adult and you can do it now.
Well, and to this day, you're still like the biggest PSP stan that I know.
Yeah.
You are like the biggest PSP supporter.
I have my Fast and Furious movies, or I think it's like 1 and 4. I don't know if Tokyo's on there, but doesn't matter. Like I still have it on there. Will I watch it? Probably not. It's good to know that I have it. But anyway, I want to hear your stand on the brick and mortar stores versus like it's different when you buy it on eBay. It's nice to support the local businesses to me.
Yeah.
But when you walk in there, it's like, well, you look at the boxes that they have on display of like the Dreamcast, the N64, the GameCube, the PS2, and it's like, wow, I can't believe how big those boxes were when we bought consoles. And it was mostly packaging.
There's
padding.
There's something really nice about going into a retro store. It gives you like this warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
Yeah.
It's like a nice time capsule.
Exactly.
That you can step inside and just explore. Like it feels like kind of a museum in a way.
Yes.
Like video games throughout history, because a lot of them, ones that I go to, whether it be in LA or New York or wherever in the country, they extend as far back as Atari 2600, sometimes even further. I saw a game store once that had a Magnavox Odyssey, which is the first ever home video game console.
Yeah.
I was really tempted to buy it just for like, I think it would make a really good piece to my home collection.
Right.
But at the same time, I was like, I know I'm never going to be able to plug it in because the plugs are impossible to find and the TV you need to hook up to is impossible.
Exactly.
And I really want to play it. So I put it off. I'll get it one of these days. But I just love going into a game store and just feeling the environment around me and maybe seeing a game that like, oh, wow, I haven't even thought about that in like the past 15 years.
Exactly.
I'm seeing this for the first time in that long.
Exactly. It's never too late.
It's a lot of fun. However, if you're going to buy a video game specifically, you do have to bear in mind that the prices in those brick and mortar stores are going to be higher than if you just go on eBay.
Yes, I would agree. And there's a reasoning behind it. It's
because they have
the
to
business
pay
mindset versus an individual just, I don't want this anymore, but I want money for it.
Right. There's more overhead cost to a store, and that makes sense. Yeah. And sometimes if you get a really good store like the Video Game Trading Post where you get like a very friendly staff and a lot of selection, it is worth it. But you have to bear in mind that sometimes you'll go to a store where it's not so worth it. So you got to be weary of that kind of stuff.
It's also worth it when you buy a bunch of stuff and they throw in a couple extra goodies for you.
Yeah, exactly. You got friendly staff that will help you out. And that is worth the extra like couple of bucks that you're going to pay in the difference.
Honestly, I got to say, no, I agree with everything you said. And it's nice to like just walk in there and just see like everything on display, everything in the shelves by the counters. For those of you who are looking for PS1, PS2, 64, GameCube, they're out there. Trust me. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm sure people aren't worried, but like, you know, they're out there. Those stores are there. There's a reason why they're there. And they test everything. Soon. Yeah, they test everything, which is nice. I'm jealous of those two machines they have that shine the out of your discs. I think they cost like a couple thousand each, but I believe it for what they're able to do.
Yeah.
To remove scratches, I mean, that's great. And honestly, it feels like a fun place to hang out because you're buying, selling, trading, whatever, and I feel like there's no stress. Everyone that's coming in there is looking for a game.
Yeah.
They're trying to escape reality. They want to do something like
they'll ask
it's different than working in a retail store.
Like they'll ask you if you want help, but they're never like pushy. They're never
Yeah.
like, hey, you need to. It's never like GameStop.
No,
where they try and
it's
upsell
not
you
like
on magazine
exactly.
subscriptions
I've
or-
never been upselled in the video game trading posts. I think
Look,
I've been
I
at
have-
another store. I went to another one in Miami, and they didn't even try to upsell. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna just take these two. That's it. Because they know, like, if you don't buy it, somebody else will.
Exactly.
But well, GameStop as a corporation, they still upsell you because that's part of their
That's their business model.
That's their business model. So they're gonna just do that because it's their intention to do so, to try to get you, to keep you as a customer, as a client, you know,
Well,
to build that clientele, you know.
It's very counterintuitive because they lost me as a client doing that stuff.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating having to go to GameStop, and every time I would buy a game, they'd be like, hey, this game's great. Do you want to pre-order this game that's coming out in 3 months? Or do you want to buy this magazine subscription? Or, hey, do you need an extra controller? Hey, do you need batteries? I know this controller doesn't take batteries, but I know you're going to need them anyway, so let's throw that in too. It's not for free. We're going to charge you $20 for it. Like, dude, stop. It's so annoying.
All right. So Chris loves GameStop. All right, next
They're the
question.
best.
All right. Chris, we have had this debate so many times, and I think I stand with you on this one.
Finally, we agree on something.
Physical versus digital games.
Physical, although not even a thought had to be going through my head.
Not even a little bit.
Physical all day, every day, no questions asked. Period.
Same thing what Chris said, except the only time I actually found digital helpful was when I was downloading a game. So I was playing a game on the Xbox One while the game I purchased was being downloaded. So I didn't have to worry about swapping the disc. That's the only time. Otherwise, physical, it's nice to have that disc. It's nice to have that collection.
Yeah.
If you decide to have a library or a cubby of games, you know, what do you call it? A case? A game case, I guess?
A game case, yeah.
Yeah, a game case. And don't get me started on those game cases that have those stupid stickers of the price.
Oh my god.
Where
dude.
you can't peel it off because it rips part of the plastic off.
Did you ever see the video I posted on TikTok about
I did.
that?
I did
Okay,
see that.
Yeah, it's the
They put it in the worst spots.
Yeah, you can't. You see it no matter what angle you look at the case from, which is a miracle. I don't know how they pull that one off.
But I think
and
once
you can never get it off. It always leaves residue behind.
Yeah,
Always,
once
every
I
time.
think I was able to take the case out, the paper, and put it in another case. Because that plastic is ruined. That's it.
Why do you have to do that?
You shouldn't have to.
do that.
Exactly. You owe me a Coke. But I have my Arizona iced tea, and I'm not being sponsored, by the way. I have some questions that you have, actually, that I can read off to you. And we'll figure it out, I guess.
Yeah.
Some questions you had posted. All right. From Chris. This is for the game.
From Chris to myself.
Yes. Did you participate in console wars? Were you a Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, or Sega guy? Do you want me to go first, or do you want to start that off?
I'll go ahead and start that off.
Okay.
I did participate in the console wars for a brief moment.
Okay.
And it was when the Nintendo came out with Nintendo came out with the Wii, because I thought this was the coolest thing in the universe, that you would be able to control your characters or physical attributes in the game with your actual body. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I didn't want to deal with Sony or Microsoft anymore because I knew they weren't going to have that technology. Little did they know they would later on, but that's not the point. And I thought it was amazing. And I defended Nintendo to death for like a solid 1.5 to 2 years before I realized that no more good games were coming out for the system until Mario Galaxy. So I gave up and got a 360.
All right. Fair enough. I'll add to that. I grew up with Sony, besides Sega Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
PS1, PS2, which were purchased by my brothers. Each, you know, they both, well, not each, but like one of them bought one and one bought the other, right?
Right.
So we have a PS1, PS2 in the house. I kind of grew up with Sony. When I used to go to Italy, my cousins, they're apparently big on Sony over there.
Oh, Europe is huge.
They're huge
Sony.
with that. So
Yeah.
I kind of stuck with that. Obviously, growing up playing Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot.
So good.
My favorite thing was the colored controllers, like the transparent red or the blue, and the memory cards. I remember my cousin having a yellow memory card. I was like, what? We're used to like the black ones or the.
Before you go any further, please explain to the audience of 15 and under what a memory card is.
So the memory card is an 8 megabyte block, a saved data slot, I guess, or a cartridge. It's technically a cartridge. You slide it into the slot.
It's like a big SD card.
Yeah, and basically, for those of you who don't know, you have to save your games. For example, if a game was 300 kilobytes, that's a third of a megabyte. So 8 megabytes would fill up fast if you were playing a big game like Gran Turismo. Anything that had a story base, they were usually up there. It took a lot of space because of how heavy it was.
We measured anything in kilobytes.
Yeah. You can't save anything now 8 megabytes, like, unless you're playing the older games. I mean, some of these games are like, like Call of Duty is like 100 gigs. The save file might be like 500 megabytes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Half of a gig just for a saved data state file. But anyway, so I grew up with the PlayStation, and I transitioned to Microsoft. I want to say late high school, early college.
So
yeah,
what made you make that transition to Microsoft?
The Xbox 360 was given to me by a friend of ours. And that's when I decided, oh, this is cool. It's a 360 Elite.
And that's when you saw the light.
That's when I saw the light. Never have I ever... Knock, knock, knock. Have I ever... Okay. I've never experienced the Red Ring of Death.
I have.
And I don't know if it's because I didn't own the original Xbox 360. Because I've either had the Elite or the Slim, which Elite, were the better. They obviously fixed their issues later on. From
what I understand, the Elite had the Jasper chip in it, which made it so that it didn't red ring.
Okay.
The original Xbox 360s had the problem where the console would overheat and cook itself.
Yes, and the Slim was great. Yeah, no issues. I still use the Slim. I play Underground 2 or Need for Speed Most Wanted. It's great. So that's my transition right there. We ready for the next one?
Lay it on me.
All right. Do you think emulation hurts or helps video games as a whole? Do you use emulators?
I do use emulators because have you ever heard of EMU VR?
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, it's this VR program where you can design your own room, whether you want to make it a replica of your childhood room or design your own bedroom that's completely from scratch, is up to you. And you can play video games in this bedroom on TVs in the room. And it's all in VR, and it looks amazing. It's an interesting
concept, but it's cool.
It's the coziest way to play video games because you can change the weather outside. You can make it snowing. You can make it rainy. You can make it a sunny day.
And we all who doesn't love playing games on a snowy day or a rainy day? I mean, let's be real. We've played games with a beautiful day out, but it's nice to have like the rain and the snow.
Back of your head where it's like, maybe I should be outside right now.
You were talking about even if it's a nice day out, you would still play. You can change the factors of the weather.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it would let you play these games not quite as you remember it back when you were a kid, but pretty close. And there's something like so unique about it that's incredible. And you can't do that unless you have emulation.
Right.
Also, emulation is very important for game preservation. Because sometimes there are some very rare games out there, like F-Zero on the Nintendo 64 disk drive, which had levels that were inaccessible on the original N64 version. Unless you have a Nintendo 64 disk drive, which only released in Japan, and will cost you upwards of like maybe $2,000 to get, you're never going to be able to play that game. But thanks to emulation, you can. And I think it's very important that we preserve games in that way.
Right.
However, there is a double-edged sword to it where you got all these, retro gaming stores out there that have to not only compete with the big GameStop-esque stores, but also people emulating games instead of buying it. So it's kind of
Right.
It's kind of, wishy-washy, and I don't really know where to land on that, but I lean more towards we got to have game preservation as an important thing. And I think it's crucial that we save backups of these games for all of history.
Right. Okay. Pretty solid. Like Metal Gear.
Hey.
Otacon. All right. Okay. Here's where I feel about this. I like emulating if I don't have access to something, but I love to have the physical copy. For example, a handheld. I'm sure we all grew up, or maybe some still playing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing Visual Boy Advance.
Yes.
For running Game Boy Advance games, or Game Boy or Game Boy Color. It was great. I remember playing Fire Red in Japanese before it was released in the States, and I'm just mashing the buttons trying to figure out yes or no, because obviously I don't read Japanese.
Well, have you learned Japanese since? Like, did that game?
No, I gotta still learn. But I gotta say, again, I was able to test drive the car before buying it. I was able to play the game and see if I liked it before it came out, and I bought it at the store.
Mm-hmm.
So again, emulation like that I like, but I always like to have the physical copy, especially if it's handheld. Like, I like to know that I have the cartridge or the UMG.
Let me ask you this: you don't have a Steam Deck, right?
I don't have a Steam Deck, no.
If you had a Steam Deck, would you emulate games and put them on the Steam Deck?
I probably would, just to have everything all in one. Even if I had physical cartridges for the handhelds or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like the PSP.
Okay. But what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that there's nothing quite like playing it in the original way it was.
No, I enjoy playing it how it should be on the original or the respective handheld device.
Mm-hmm.
It's different using the keys to play a 3DS emulator on the keyboard.
That's true.
Than it is on the actual,
Yeah, like even GameCube, like you can get a GameCube controller and plug it into your
and then
computer
use
and
Dolphin
it'll
or
probably
something.
Be okay.
You can
but
use
there's nothing
Dolphin
quite
emulator.
like you can use Dolphin emulator, but there's nothing quite like. And honestly, the emulator will look better than the actual GameCube version.
It'll run smoother on the computer, and even though you're using the what?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was saying even if you use the controller, but something about popping the disc in, plugging your controller in or whatever it's plugged in, and just knowing that you're sitting in front of the TV as you should, and just play. It just gives you that feel like, and seeing the light on the console, it's like this thing works.
You're
the
playing
orange light on the GameCube. It works
exactly. You're playing it the way the original developers intended for you to play it.
Exactly.
And there's something nice about that. It's kind of like if you're a film buff out there and you got a film print of a movie.
Yes.
Yeah, you could probably get that same movie on Blu-ray, but watching it on the film print, the way it was originally shot for, is just so nice. There's just something so great about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I mean it this time.
I do too.
All right. Were you gonna ask me something, or should I proceed?
I don't. Nothing.
We were talking about the controller plugged into the computer, hardware running a little bit better, and then you said, however.
Oh no, I was gonna ask you. So I was gonna ask you, where do you stand on emulation on PC? Like, do you think it runs better, or do you think you prefer?
I think it runs better depending on your PC specs. I mean, you can cruise through a whole. I remember loading Game Boy Advance games on there, just mashing the Z. I believe Z was supposed to be A on the keyboard. If I'm not, and then X was
A? What the?
Z was A and X was B by default.
Oh,
I could be wrong, but I remember using that a lot. So, and then the arrow keys, of course.
Of course.
Unless you want to do WASD with Z and X is a little weird, but
that's backwards, because you on the Game Boy you use the left thumb for the D-pad and the right thumb for the B and A. So you reversed it on the keyboard.
Reversed it, yeah.
That's weird.
But I think if you fire up Visual Boy Advance, I believe Z is set to A and X is the B. And then Enter is start, and I think Shift might be select. Or backspace is select, yeah.
That is another great thing about emulators, that you can remap the controls.
You can remap the controls, or if you have a gamepad, you can do that too. So we have a last question. We'll see if anything else pops up. What game do you think you've played the most throughout your whole life? I might have a 3-way tie. You
Oh,
can
man.
definitely go ahead and
Like just hours alone clocked into
this is our life, like
Our
up to
whole
now.
our whole lifespan
Okay,
up to this point.
I gotta really think about this, but if you think you got it, go ahead.
For me, it's a tie between 2 games.
Okay.
Can we count a franchise?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Franchises are allowed.
Halo.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I must have clocked hundreds of thousands of hours into all the Halo games. And Resident Evil 4.
Interesting.
played-
Okay.
I have played just about every single port of that game and beaten them all the way through each time.
I was not gonna expect that. I'll be honest with you. Okay. I respect that. That's a good.
I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I must have clocked minimum 1,000 hours into that game alone.
That's awesome. And I can attest to that. He has it on every port possible, including the new one.
Even the only one I don't have is the Zebo. And if anyone knows what the Zebo is, God bless you.
I didn't sneeze.
Bless you.
Okay. I think I have it. I should know, right?
I think you would know more than anybody.
The GTA trilogy for sure.
Oh,
GTA
yeah.
3, San Andreas, and Vice City.
Hands down.
Because I started playing GTA 3 in 2002. I want to say those, excluding the trilogy now. Just playing it on the PS2 and whatnot. I would say that. Need for Speed. I would probably throw that up there as well.
I absolutely
Most Wanted. Believe it or not, I did not grow up with Underground 2. I only recently got that like 4 years ago. Need for Speed, Most Wanted, Hot Pursuit. Especially on Hot Pursuit 3 on the PS1. So yeah, Need for Speed franchise and GTA. Not until recently did I start getting into the Halo franchise a lot.
Right.
But I definitely not as high as yours.
I've been getting my girlfriend.
Oh, it's Spyro and Crash.
I've been getting my girlfriend into Halo also, so I'm slowly spreading the Halo love.
You're basically you're basically sharing your hours worth.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
turning
spreading the hours.
You're for you and your girlfriend. You're sharing your hours into hours. if that makes sense.
That's really cheesy. Use that on your girlfriend. I think that'll work.
Okay, Kristen. Okay. All right. So that was the last question. I guess we can wrap it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
I don't have anything else that comes to mind immediately. Do you?
No. I think we went through a lot of great questions, and for all the years I've known you, I've never asked you, other than the physical and digital, I never really asked you like what your childhood was like growing up.
We've had that debate a lot.
Yes. What, the physical digital?
Physical versus digital.
We did, but we never knew like where we started, like where we came from, what we started with.
Yeah, we haven't asked each other that question.
We kind of have like
so
a similar childhood growing up, especially with like the older gen consoles. Would you call Nintendo 64 retro?
At this point, absolutely.
At this point, yeah, right? Yeah. Anyway, is there any final words you have?
To all the kids out there playing video games, have fun, stay boneless.
It's never too late to play the old consoles or handhelds, because even though they may hurt your eyes on certain TVs, there's still meaning as to why they existed in the first place.
You gotta know where the game started. Like, if you're playing GTA Online right now and you're being a griefer, do you. You do you. You're an you do you. But you gotta play GTA 3 to know why the series is so popular with that game. Bonus
if you start with GTA 1, but you can start with 3.
Let's not go crazy. Let's not. GTA 1.
To be fair though,
GTA
GTA 1 was more arcade. GTA 2 actually had a story mode, and I never even touched London. I feel like I need to add it to my collection at some point.
There are some games though where you can't go back and play them.
Which I heard GTA London was supposed to be like the DLC.
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
Oh, so it's like a third disc.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Think of it like the Sonic and Knuckles of the GTA universe.
Yeah. And one last thing to add before we leave. I praise so much when games came out and were 100% ready to go out of the box.
My God.
And did not need a day one patch update. Those were such great days.
And you know what's great about games back then? They couldn't go in and fix stuff that they wanted to remove later. Like, you know how sometimes they take content away from games? They couldn't do that back then. Everything they gave you was 100% yours. They can't take it away from you.
Exactly. Well, stuff we'll never forget, honestly. Never forgive.
Never forget.
But anyway, Chris, it was great chatting with you.
Always, man.
About going through all these questions and the gaming experiences we both had, you know, together and, you know, with family growing up. Family. But I appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, anytime you want to talk, just let me know.
Yeah, and hit them up on the socials.
Hit me up
Gameboiz.
on TikTok. The Gameboiz on TikTok. Hit us up on YouTube. We're going to be posting way more videos this year.
Yes, we're going hard this year.
We're going
2024.
Hard. The Gameboiz, TheGameboiz. Chris,
thank you again. And everyone watching, thank you for joining. If you have any questions or comments about the video itself, put them below. We would like to hear your thoughts on retro gaming, current gaming, past, anything gaming related. Tell us what your favorite games are, consoles, handhelds, favorite gaming experience growing up, childhood, etc., etc. Until then, stay boneless.